the second set of the 2025 starter kits. We've already done the Marvel unboxing. Let's see what DC's got to offer. Those sculpts look absolutely incredible. We'll take those out and get a closer look here in a second. But right off the bat, we've got some really nice terrain markers for us. Just like the Marvel set, we've got 6 full smokes. So that way we can use out probably smoke screen with Batman if I had to guess. We got 2 water terrains, we got a debris, and then we've got a bunch of pogs and some action tokens on this side. Looks like we've got Dark Side instead of, I think it was Ultron for the other one. A little Parademon action. Let's go ahead and open these up. So one of the difficult things about Heroclix is getting all the small things you need to begin with. So on this side we can see we've got debris, we've got 1 actual hindering marker there, and then 4 barriers, which is nice because that's exactly how many you need for any barrier piece. So I appreciate that these tokens give you enough to use the main abilities that require them. And sometimes it's kind of hard to get a hold of this kind of thing as a new player. I remember when I started a very long time ago, you had more of these than you knew what to do with. But it's kind of the opposite situation now. And then we've got so Dark Side on one side, 35 points for honestly a pretty crazy strong looking pog. No moving attack, but I think this is the exact same stats as Ultron. And the Parademon looks like the exact same stats as the Ultron drone. Parademon on both sides, Dark Side on both sides, and the civilians on one side and Parademons on the other, it looks like. Yeah, so exact same setup. No advantage or disadvantage of getting pogs from either set. Just depends on what flavor you want. Let's go ahead and open up this bad boy. I like the dice. We'll do the cards here in a bit, but we'll do a little brief overview first. Just like before, we've got the 50-point version of any of these characters. There we go. So each of these characters has a 50-point value, and if you're playing them on 50 points, you would use these cards. And a 75-point value that you'd use with these cards. We also have our beautiful rule book here. And judging by the table of contents, we've got a breakdown of how to build a team, powers and abilities. This looks identical to the one from the Marvel set, which is good. You want to be teaching all new players the same thing. And they've even got a quick breakdown of the team that's in here, how they want to be playing them, and a small little learner scenario here in yellow to teach you how to play the game, how actions work, and everything like that. I think we might play through this little intro portion as a learn to play section for this channel. May be helpful for some people, because any learning content that's out there for Heroclix is awesome. And then we've got the powers and ability card. I think the one that I carry is red on the edges, and I want to say the Marvel one might have been too, but I kind of like the blue. And there's nothing too special about this. I think it's the same one from the Spider-Man Beyond Amazing. I think we don't believe there's any additions or changes. On the back side here, you've got all your improved abilities, all your keywords, things like that. And on the front side, all your color-coded powers. If you've played Heroclix, you know and love it. It's the pack. Kind of can't play without it, and you definitely can't teach the game without it. Which brings us finally to our map. The Marvel one was one-sided, and it looks like this one is too, even though I'm fairly certain the box says that it is a double-sided map. So incorrect there on both the Marvel and the DC side, which is unfortunate, because it's kind of hard to get maps as a new player. Let me clear the space a little bit. Oh, it's a parking lot. It's actually kind of cool. Here, I'll lift this up a little bit just so you guys can see. And it's a nice little parking lot with some blocking terrain in it for the street lights. Now we've got our little post in here and a lot of hindering and busted up cars there in the actual parking spaces there. Sorry about the glare, it's probably pretty bad. But this map is, if you took me to this map and asked me to choose a side, I'm definitely choosing this top end here. That way I've got the hindering and blocking to help defend myself, whereas this bottom side's a little bit more open. Well, let's go ahead and take a look here at the sculpts. We've got my big boy in blue, and probably the strongest figure that's going to be in this set is the Superman here. Whenever he moves, whether it's 75 or 50, he gets to make an attack after. And that's not a free action attack, so the more times you can make him move, the more times you can do it. They really jammed that Wonder Woman in there, didn't they? So really cool sculpt for Wonder Woman. Looks absolutely incredible. Really solid. She's a nice little incapacitate piece. She's also got some empower on that dial, so she wants to be up close with Superman. And then we've got the Blue Beetle. I think it's really funny that they can have the characters wielding, you know, massive swords, but guns are not available. It's kind of a little funny quirk of Heroclix, I suppose. The Blue Beetle gives you your probability control, which is a very, very important ability in Heroclix. And surprisingly, they also gave him the Mystics team ability. Probably one of the most commonly forgotten about abilities in terms of actually resolving it. So hopefully that doesn't cause too much confusion for new players. And finally, after a bit of hassle, we have the Bat, which I really appreciate that sculpt there, a little batarang action. Now this is going to be both your outwit piece and at 75 points your perplex piece. So unlike the 2024 starter, which really was lacking on some of the support powers, between just these two alone you're picking up perplex, outwit, and probability if you're playing them at 75 points. So you've got the whole gambit. And I do like that most of your support is confined to one piece. That way, when you're actually taking your turn, you've got 3 main attackers and a support piece, which makes it really easy to mentally kind of categorize the players and how their characters are supposed to work. Let me bring you back to HC units now that you've got a general overview of each character. I prefer to use HC units because it makes it very visual, very easy to see the card and how everything works together. Plus, this is the website that most Heroclix players use to categorize their collection and to do team building. So we're starting off with the 50-point Batman. He's got the Justice League team ability, which works the exact same as the Avengers team ability. And at just 50 points, he has Outwit, which is one of the 3 main support power sets. We didn't see, I don't think we saw any of this in the Marvel set in terms of support pieces, but they have some mean attackers on that side. And so he doesn't just have Outwit, he has, when he uses this power, he may choose an additional power the target can't use until your next turn. So this is very, very good for turning off powers that your opponent has, either just standard colored powers or like these white empty boxes that are special powers. And Batman doesn't just turn off one thing, he can turn off 2 of the same characters. At the top dial, he's 8, 11, 18, and 3 with Stealth, Precision Strike, Super Senses, and this special Outwit. He's got 4 range and 3 bolts, which is super nice. but he does not have any move and attack or anything like that. He is almost purely an outwit piece. He's going to move in, outwit a target, and then on the next turn start attacking. If we bump him up to 75 points though, we see he gets a special trait, which gives him Perplex. This lets him modify a stat plus or minus 1 of a character that he can target. Another of the 3 main support powers that exist in Heroclix, so he's got 2 of them by himself, like I said before. And more importantly, he has this really nice free ability. Place Batman in a square of hindering terrain within range and line of fire. This is absolutely fantastic because it doesn't need to be a printed square of hindering. You can, say, break a wall with another character and then have Batman jump forward into that debris, which is super nice. And this gives him that movement he was sorely missing at 50. And then he has this intimidating glare, the improved outwit. Instead of outwitting 2 different powers on the same target, instead he outwits 1 power like normal, and then also gives them an action token. So you're kind of getting an incapacitate piece for free because you don't need to actually hit the attack. So this Batman can jump forward, perplex down somebody's defense to be 1 less, can outwit their defense power, give them an action token, and then try to hit them and everyone else around them with this precision strike and 3 damage. So really solid support piece. Then we have the 50-point Blue Beetle. I mentioned before this is the Mystics team ability, and what that means is that every time he receives damage, he will do 1 damage back to the attacker, making it very difficult to take him down. At 50-point line, he's got this probability control, and when he uses it to reroll an attack roll, he can choose to reroll a single die in that roll, which is really helpful because let's say you need to roll a 7 and you roll a 5 and a 1. So you've missed the attack, but you've got that big 5 there on that 1 die, so you get to keep it and just re-roll the 1, potentially hitting much more often than if you re-rolled both, which is nice. We've got 4 range with 1 bolt here for target. We see this speed symbol here, meaning he is flying, and he's 8, 12, 18, and 3, so a really nice close attacker here. At 75 points, you get this really nice defensive bonus in the Scarab trait. Once per game, when he would take 3 or more damage, you may choose that he just takes no damage instead. This is really nice because on the back end of the dial here, he doesn't have a way to reduce damage anymore. So chances are you're going to be taking all of it, and most characters can do at least 3 damage. So really good way for him to stay alive when he's low on life. He keeps the probability control he had before, but he also gains exploit weakness, so his damage cannot be reduced by most reducers. And then once per turn, Blue Beetle may reroll a single die he rolled. This is a little bit better than the probability control he had at 50, because the one at 50 said during his attack or during an attack. In this case, it can be any single d6 he rolls. And this attack power here, Blades, Claws, and Fangs, instead of doing his normal 3 damage, he can roll a d6 and do that damage instead. So with this power, you can re-roll that and potentially do even more damage or stop yourself from rolling, a 1 or a 2. Then we've got the 50-point Superman. As I said before, he has this really cool speed power here. It just says when Superman moves, and notice that is lowercase. For some of you rule junkies, that is important. And it says after resolutions, he may make an attack. This isn't free make an attack, kind of like Batman has this capital free here. Instead, this is just a passive thing that he's going to be doing. And this is going to work with his attack power that just says damage dealt by this character's range attacks is penetrating. So if you can get this character to move multiple times on a turn, he's going to be able to attack over and over and over. In this set though, you don't really have ways to abuse it, but this means that you can move his full 8 speed and then still make an attack afterwards at this wonderful 5 range. So even without any build around components, it's still a really good power. Up at 75 points, he gains super strength. He's the Man of Steel, he should have it. And even better, he has that Superman cannot be knocked back, and he can reduce penetrating damage, which is really awesome because his defense power down here just flat reduces damage by 2, and he can roll a d6, and on a 5 or 6 he reduces all damage to 0. Normally this wouldn't work on damage that's penetrating. Like if this Superman shot himself somehow, his 3 damage would be penetrating from this blue power and would ignore this defense. But because he's got this line of text up here, now he's reducing all damage. It doesn't matter what type it is. And then finally his speed power gets an upgrade down here. He's got Flurry, which we saw from last video with the Hulk. It means that he can attack twice, with a close attack anyway. And he still keeps that really cool full movement after he moves. Once he's done moving, he may make a range attack or use Flurry as free. Now, unlike the 50-point line that just says he can make an attack, it doesn't matter if it's range or close. In this instance, this Flurry can only be done once normally, and then one more time as free. If you're confused on how that works, the rulebook does a good way to describe it. But basically, if something is a capital free, your character can only do it one time on their turn, even if you could somehow create multiple chances to do it, which this Superman could definitely do. But this range attack isn't free. It's just a passive thing that happens. So if you were able to get this Superman to move multiple times, like let's say you ran all the way up in front of someone, you could Flurry as free, and then if you had a way for him to move again, let's say step backwards, he'd still be able to make this ranged attack, because this is an either or kind of thing, which is fantastic. The more times you can generate it, the more times you can do it. Wonder Woman has her Wonder Woman Ally team ability, which will let her essentially have a weaker version of super senses if it's not already on her dial, and if it is on her dial, it's even better. She has the Incapacitate with the Golden Lasso, which lets you give action tokens to people instead of damage. We saw this on Yelena as well. And then whenever Wonder Woman gives an opposing character an action token, we're going to modify that character's defense -1 until your next turn, which is really good. Because you're not only giving them the action tokens to slow them down, and they'll potentially have to skip a turn from having 2 action tokens, but it also makes them easier to hit for everyone else on your team, which is fantastic. She has 4 range with 2 lightning bolts. She has 8 speed, 12 attack, 18 defense, and 3 damage. Another really, really good stat line. Once we go up to 75, we get this really cool passive ability, Adjacent Characters Modified Defense +1. This does not work on herself because you are never adjacent to yourself, but it does work for everybody else. And if we take a quick look back, that brings Superman up to a 19, Blue Beetle up to a 19, Batman up to a 19, and that is very hard to hit for most characters. A 19 or 20 starts getting closer to the realm of you're being more likely to miss than to hit. So that's a very, very good ability, even though it doesn't read as being very impactful. Don't underestimate a stat boost. And then she has a new attack power. So she has Precision Strike, which lets her help get through some defensive abilities. And when Wonder Woman damages an opposing character, after resolutions, you still give them an action token. So very good at slowing down your team and buffing your own team. A really cool kind of pseudo attacker / support piece. But all of these pieces, just like the Marvel set, are really awesome. The only character here that doesn't have a move and attack, Batman, gets a free placement at 75. So you don't have to solve that same problem as you would if you had the Marvel set with Hulk. And you have a little bit more support powers, but I feel like the attackers here maybe aren't quite as potent out of the box, but have some very serious potential if you build around them. Like I said before, the bystanders are the exact same between one side and the other. And then I'll leave you on the map here again. This is a very asymmetrical map, which is strange for Heroclix. Normally it's at least a little bit symmetrical. But still a very cool idea, especially because it's outdoor. So I hope you guys really like the DC opening. But thank you for watching. And I think next time we upload, we've got a really, really cool gameplay session. I hope you like it. Please like and subscribe so you don't miss an upload.